Crystal Heart Radio.
Well, hello everybody, and this is Caroline, founder of Crystal Heart Radio and Crystal Heart Psychics, and welcome to my Monday 10 p.m. show. I will be doing 2 shows a week, a Monday and a Thursday. So what are we talking about today? Well, I'm going to be talking about stepping into your light, because I think the energy right now out there is actually very good for us, in the sense we've just gone through the solar eclipse. But anyway, I just wanted to talk about myself. So I'm Caroline, the founder of Crystal Heart. For those who don't know me, I am a psychic and spiritual practitioner and teacher, and my own spiritual journey has taken me through a number of different areas of spiritual work, learning and healing. And I've always been fascinated by connection between spirituality, intuition, energy, and personal development. And as previously, when I've explained, I'm a psychic medium, so I work with my guides. I'm also clairvoyant, which means I get pictures in my head in symbolization form. I am also a life coach, a CBT practitioner. I'm also a Reiki master teacher. So over the past 20 years since I discovered my gifts, I spent a lot of time learning and honing in those gifts. And obviously I've had Crystal Heart Psychics for 13 years, and I have worked professionally for 20 years. So as that said, I have always been fascinated between spirituality, intuition, energy, and personal development. I think they all go hand in glove. And also over the years, I've built that experience into what Crystal Heart is today. So Crystal Heart isn't just about me. It's actually about creating a space where other people can explore their spirituality too. And that's really where Crystal Heart Radio came from. So with Crystal Heart Radio, I wanted to create something different, a place where psychics, spiritual practitioners, teachers, healers, and creators could actually have a voice. Somewhere you could listen to a show, join a conversation, learn something, discover a practitioner, or simply sit back and listen. And that's what Crystal Heart Radio is about. It's a live radio, but it's also a community for connection and discovery. And this is only one part of the bigger Crystal Heart vision. So the Crystal Heart ecosystem, which is what I've been creating over the past few months, has grown, well, it's grown into an ecosystem of different platforms. So I started with Crystal Heart Psychics, connecting people with psychic readers, as I have also been a telephone psychic reader myself for many, many, many years. Crystal Heart Radio, which is where we are tonight. There is Crystal Heart Mind, which focuses on meditation, hypnosis, and well-being. And I am also a qualified certified hypnotherapist as well. Also, I've created Crystal Heart Academy, where people can learn and creators can develop courses. And Crystal Heart Wellness, which will be coming soon, it is still in development, is more about well-being world in the same ecosystem. So they're all different doors to the same house. I also have Crystal Heart Flow, which is a social media platform poster. So there is lots of things going on in the Crystal Heart world, and I'm inviting you to join me as a host or a listener to enjoy that experience. And this idea, you can explore whichever part of Crystal Heart feels right for you. So tonight's energy, let's look what's happening energetically this week. Well, we've just come through the new moon and the total solar eclipse in Leo on the 12th of August. And Leo is very much about expression. And if you think of Leo, and I look at it this way, Leo is a lion, is a strong heart. And even if you think of tarot, like the lion is courage. So it's about creativity, confidence, being seen, and having the courage to say, this is who I am and this is what I have to offer. And I think that's a really interesting thing for us all, because sometimes we know exactly what we're capable of, but we're still a little bit scared of being seen doing it. So perhaps one question for you tonight is, where are you hiding your light? And this is why I talk about stepping into the light, because it's also about having the confidence. And I will talk a little bit about the Crystal Heart vision, because obviously my company is Crystal Heart Visions. Is if you'd have said to me 6 months ago, you're going to make your own radio platform, I would have probably looked at you as if to say, really? So I started a path of discovery and learned that I could do this. And I'm very proud of what I've achieved and also what I've produced. And I hope that others will come to enjoy it for many years. The one thing I will say is, as far as the platform is concerned, you know, I've had to move around platforms, pay different subscriptions. And the problem is with that, like with what happened with Blog Talk, I was on Blog Talk for 11 years and a lot of our listeners didn't come across, which was a real shame. So I'm hoping that those join me in the future. But when we talk about hiding your light, what part of yourself are you actually ready to express? What have you been putting off? And what would happen if you stopped waiting for permission? And what exactly are you waiting for permission for? Is it for approval of others? Because the way you have to look at that is sometimes not necessarily people are on your side. They may say, well done, we're proud of you. Doesn't necessarily mean they are for you or want you to achieve. I certainly learned that from a very young age when I went through my accountancy exams, and there was lots of people that were friends that, strangely enough, when I actually qualified, were no longer friends anymore. That is nothing to do with me. That's because they felt that my ego may have changed, which wasn't the case. And then obviously when it comes to my growth into the psychic world, as I've explained before, in 2005, my hand started getting hot. I didn't know what it was. It wasn't until I went through some life changes personally that I started to have healing sessions, which the person that was actually giving me those sessions was, did you know you're a natural healer? Then my logical brain started to think about what is this? So I took myself on a lot of courses, which again was the spiritual practitioner course, the NLP master practitioner, my Reiki master teacher, my NLP, and again, I went through a lot of courses and still to this day carry on doing many courses. And, now with my own academy platform, I enjoy writing them as well. And what I've learned, especially with that spiritual wellness twist. But let's go back to the planet. So right now, the sun is currently in Leo. So we talked about the tarot, the lion, the strength and courage. That comes alongside Jupiter, giving us a really strong Leo influence. Mercury is also in Leo, bringing communication and self-expression into that picture. And tonight the moon's moved into Scorpio. So we have a really fascinating combination. Leo says, be seen. Scorpio says, but first be honest with yourself. Are you ready? And that's really powerful because transformation isn't always about becoming someone completely different. It's finding the balance of who you are within your comfort zone, but just push that little boundary out there. So sometimes it's about becoming honest enough to finally be yourself. And I certainly learned that becoming psychic, because I lived in a world where most of the people around me didn't really believe in what I do. So when you start to say to people, well, I'm psychic or I'm a healer, you get several different responses. And certainly some of the people around me weren't very approving, shall we say. However, because I've got that logical aspect, I always remain grounded with everything I do. And therefore, I love what I do because I get to heal, I get to guide, and I get to advise people. And I've seen some beautiful healing journeys over the years. So we go back to what's going on planetary. So Mercury and Saturn. So there's also a beautiful Mercury-Saturn connection around this time. And astrologically, that's about taking ideas and giving them a structure. So we go back to that beautiful having courage, having the strength to be yourself, and having the vision. And then you have to think about the build. So if you remember last week when we talked about manifestation, it's about using your intuition, having that idea, that vision, allowing yourself to be created, and then also following your intuition to take action. So, because dreams are great, but eventually you do have to bring them down into the real world. And this is about where I talk about being grounded. But again, we've also got Venus connecting positively with Jupiter. So, that's a really nice energy for creativity, connection, and openness within ourselves. So, there's a running theme with this right now. So, perhaps you need to ask yourself, where could I allow a little bit more possibility into my life? And again, I do think about this from a spiritual level. Sort of my guides has often always said to me, be open with who you are, be open about your gift. And I use my intuition and my discernment. So when I'm talking to people, if I understand that people are open, I'm actually totally okay with talking about my spirituality. But again, it's that learning about sort of, okay, so having that discernment about when you're talking to somebody else and what they will accept. But now we're talking also about ascension and spiritual growth, because I do believe very strongly that we're all, as spiritual beings, being asked to, our energy is shifting, and therefore we're being asked to grow ourselves spiritually. And some people would describe this as an ascension period. For me, ascension isn't necessarily about becoming perfect or somehow leaving an ordinary life behind. Ascension could be as simple as just raising our vibration. And the reason why I talk about vibration is when we're relaxing and we're releasing our energy, obviously we're releasing old baggage, and therefore it allows us to move forward into a calmer and happier place in our life. It's about becoming more conscious, becoming more aware of ourselves, recognizing patterns, and letting go of what no longer serves us, and becoming more aligned with who we actually are. And that's where this week's energy gets really interesting, because we've got Leo is our expression, strength and courage. Scorpio again, transformation. Remember, that's a water sign. Aquarius again, the bigger picture, another water sign. Well, not water as such, but the water carrier. Then we have Virgo, where we're being grounded and putting it to practice. So you see yourself, transform yourself, think bigger, and then do something with it. And again, it goes back to that taking action. So when we talk about manifestation, again, we go back into think, dream, do your vision board, plan. But again, it's about taking that action. And I often talk about, it's about sort of when you say, I'm looking for another job. You don't sit there and just expect another job to come to you. There is a certain level of actions that you need to take, which is you put yourself on the job boards, you get your CV updated, you put yourself out there, you talk to recruiters, you send your information to companies. And eventually you'll get invited to an interview, and then you'll be expected to be prepared for that interview. And yes, you will then get the job. And this is what I'm talking about when it comes to being grounded. At some point, you have to sit down and do the work. Okay. So your spiritual growth isn't necessarily just about awakening. It's about what we do with our awareness afterwards and how we action that. So this week, Thursday brings the first quarter moon in Scorpio, which again, I will be doing my show and we'll be discussing that. And if tonight feels like, what am I being called towards? Thursday can become, okay, what am I actually going to do about it? And we move towards the end of the week. The sun moves into Virgo. Virgo brings us back down to earth, the practical stuff, the routines, the details, the body, and the everyday choices. Because you can have an amazing spiritual experience, but I can honestly say, from my experience, being grounded is really, really important. So now, obviously, because I am waiting for callers, however, if there is no one to call, we can talk about the different energies. So I have pulled some tarot cards for tonight, and I have the Magician, the Hermit, and the Star. So again, I'm not a natural tarot reader, but I have learned to use the tarot. And again, I do see this a lot online where a lot of people talk about the tarot and say it's this, it's this, it's this. And I've actually seen it, people reading a book. When you pull tarot, it's about the energy that you're feeling from that card, and it's not necessarily what's written down. So when I look at the spread that I've got tonight, the magician is about making everything possible. So we're going back into that choices, making choices, and actually there is everything is available to us right now because we're in this wonderful energetic period astrologically, which is about making sure we can manifest. Then we have the hermit, which comes into, it's calling us to go inside, take notes, meditation, deep breath work. So we can start to unravel what we need to do and have some thought around it. So thinking and planning and feeling what we need to do. And then the star. And I always say the star is a really wonderful card. It's be the star of your own story. And it is about taking stock, enjoying yourself. And actually, again, this is about revealing who you are inside. So allow yourself to emerge just like a butterfly. Be that star. Learn to enjoy your life and have faith. And I think that's really interesting considering we've just talked about the planetary alignment. The cards that I've actually pulled tonight is actually representative of that. And I've also pulled an angel card, which is the Archangel Zadkiel, which is, again, an angel of benevolence and mercy. And it arrives to assist us in profound work and spiritual alchemy, very much the same as the magician. So it's a powerful invitation to release any heavy burdens, which is also what we've talked about, and act as a divine filter, helping you transmute lower vibrational energy, which is about the ascension of resentment and regret, into gold of wisdom and compassion. So again, this is about opening up, releasing any negativity that doesn't actually serve you anymore, any emotions that you've been holding on to for several years. And sometimes, we go through life experiences and they can be very, very challenging. I've had my fair share. But also I think what we can use is an affirmation for this, where I release all that no longer serves my highest good. And I embrace the violet flame of transformation to heal my heart and expand my soul. So now I'm just going to ask you to find a quiet space and close your eyes and visualize that gentle violet light enveloping your entire body. Consciously breathe in this light and dissolve any lingering emotional pain. Just take a deep breath in through the nose. Just allow your body to relax and receive. Whether you're listening to me live or in podcast form later, just give yourself permission to release anything that is burdening you right now. And as you do that, I'm going to play some beautiful, relaxing music. And that was a beautiful song called The Quartz Halo. So I'm now just going to talk a little bit about the music on Crystal Heart. So I set about, I do enjoy sound healing. It's something I started looking at a very long time ago, well, perhaps 20 years ago. And there's quite a funny story. I was with a very close friend and I'd started my spiritual practitioner course. And I loved the sound of the crystal singing bowls, and she actually had some. So I decided that I would try them. What I didn't realize is I could play them, and I could only not just play them with one hand, but two. And I absolutely love the sound. So now I actually have a full collection of all of the chakra bowls. Now, I was actually healing a client at the weekend, and I think it's really important. So we see an awful lot of sound baths going out there right now. So every piece of music that's on Crystal Heart Radio, even the three channels, the three auto DJ channels, and anyone who actually has downloaded the app, you will now see there is a background media player. So that means that those will continue to play. So every single piece of music on Crystal Heart Radio has been created by myself, and it's been created by the different frequencies. So there, and again, talking about healing, there are many different approaches. As you know, I'm a Reiki master teacher, but I am also a Seichem healer as well. Now, for me, my hands just got hot. I didn't know what it was, but I knew I was channeling different energies. So the different sides of healing, also, you will know I'm a herbologist and also a homeopathist as well. So again, I'm talking about sound, and it's been used across many cultures for centuries through singing, chanting, drums, spells, bowls, music, and the human voice. The other thing that I always remember once is I actually went to a beautiful Sikh wedding, and the music was amazing. I sat there, I could actually feel the pulse in my chest, which was amazing. So, from a spiritual and well-being perspective, sound can become a way of bringing our attention back to the present moment. So, we don't necessarily need an elaborate sound bath, or sometimes simply stopping, breathing, and listening is all very good. And that can change your state of mind, which is what we've just done. But I do want to talk about the healing session that I actually had at the week. Well, I didn't have at the weekend, I performed at the weekend. And this is a client of mine that has a potential terminal illness. And what was interesting is I actually started to talk about the crystal bowls. As I said, I've got every single one. And the bit about crystal bowls is, and people don't realize this, every chakra actually operates at a frequency. So, for instance, for your root chakra, that's root C. So it's a note of C. And the frequency associated with that is 256 hertz. The sacral chakra is D, 288 hertz. Solar plexus is E, 320 hertz. And the heart is F, which is a 341. And throat G, which is 384 hertz. And the third eye, 426. And the crown again is B, and that's 480 hertz. So again, this isn't necessarily universally accepted. It's just from studying that I've done. But what I have found that with clients, and I'm not just talking about, one specific client, is I often finish off with a sound healing session. And what I do tend to find, and it's a little bit like crystals, but we won't go into crystals tonight, because I think we're covering quite a few topics. But I do think when it comes to everything actually operates at a vibrational level, and that's what we are taught from a healing perspective. And therefore, there's a biomagnetic energy field around us, and that gives us that electromagnetic energy. And when people have said to me in the past, I'm not sure about this, think about this, you can get an electric shock, okay? When a person thinks to move their arm, their brain is sending electrical impulse down their nervous system through their arm so they can actually move their arm. So when we talk about sound healing, it's very interesting because I do feel it can offer great comfort and huge relaxation. And the interesting fact is the client that I actually was talking to at the weekend and performing a healing session, we were discussing sound healing. And I actually then had an inspirational moment where I started to say, well, let's look at sound healing for, obviously her situation. And I started to look into it. And again, it's still being scientifically tested. But, again, when we're talking about long-term illnesses or terminal illnesses, there is some medical treatments out there which actually use oscillating sound vibration to assist with healing. So for me, when I was actually designing Crystal Heart Radio, I actually learned how to create songs. So every single song that is on Crystal Heart Radio is actually at the different frequencies as per the chakra points. Now, the reason why I'm quite heavily into my music as well is as a child, I used to play the flute. I'm actually, and I used to also have, I started off with the recorder as everybody does, but I actually then went on and did further musical studies. So where I actually played the flute and also all of the recorder family. And also 2 years ago, I actually had a harp lesson, which was pretty amazing. So music can lift the soul, but also music can help us to relax. And also, we can also go out. Many years ago, I used to love dancing. And again, anything that lifts your spirits and lifts your soul will lift your vibration. And I think sometimes we can all be a little bit too serious. And certainly from my point of view, my guides have always had a sense of humor, because, we are here to heal, lift, and empower you into what you want to do in your future. And certainly when you have inspiration, that's my job as a psychic and a healer to work out what to actually pass on messages that I'm getting from spirits. So again, there's certain little things that you will see on Crystal Heart Radio where I've designed it for people to come and to listen, to enjoy that sound healing music. And don't get me wrong, it's not going to stop there. I'll keep adding music, because the whole point is that it is a place to come for spiritual safety, obviously. It's a safe space for anyone that is interested in their spiritual development, or actually just want a reading. Obviously I am a traditional psychic where I will give readings on relationships and career. Obviously, I do say you have to be over 18, and this is for entertainment purposes only. But again, Crystal Heart Radio covers that. If you join as a listener, you will have to give your age. If you join as a host, because we have the wallet share system, you will have to go through the Stripe Connect process, which actually automatically does all the verification, ID verification. So again, we've had that nice little session today, and we've enjoyed the sound of the chakra and the crystal bowl healing, which is lovely. So I'm going to be back on Thursday, but again, feel free, for anyone who hears me with this podcast, feel free to join me. Feel free to, join me, come ask your questions. I do understand it's a new platform, and also we do have tutorials. I will be doing some tutorial videos. However, we do actually have tutorials within the app under tutorials. So if you actually went into our world or information, you can actually see there the tutorials are right there, and about crystal hearts as well, because obviously crystal hearts just doesn't just sit with radio and psychics. So we have mind and hypnosis, or mind, which is hypnosis and meditation. So there's two aspects of that. You can listen to a meditation and purchase one, and that's streamed on the app. You can also become a creator, which means that there is a studio there where you can actually record your own voice, upload your own audio, upload your own music, but we also have a selection of music that you can use. And also we have the option to use an AI voice to create meditations quicker and hypnosis quicker. And again, we also have Academy now, which is absolutely brilliant. I've started to create courses on that already. That's a full learning management system. So from a creator point of view, we have some templates that you can use and the suggestions. So you have the choice as a creator. You can actually type it all in yourself, upload your own courses, or actually you can also have AI assistance. But it's not a one-stop, yes, let's just use AI. It's very much a case of AI is assisting you in writing the course, but on top of that, you can actually add your own content. And with Academy, you can actually sell online on Academy your courses. But on top of that, you have a wallet share. So again, it's the same strategy that the revenue share for Crystal Heart Radio is 60/40. Obviously, we have platform costs to cover, but that's the fairest model that it could be. And actually, we're very good in comparison to other platforms. Because it's actual real physical cash, going through the podcast and the live call in. Blog Talk didn't do any of that at all. Podbean, you could earn Podbeans, but you had to be putting a lot of content out there. So the only other option then was to provide donation links, which we've now taken care of that in Crystal Heart Radio. But again, the beauty of Crystal Heart Radio is I can be online available straight after the show to take private calls, and also, even if I'm not available, I will have scheduled time in, so you can book me up on those sessions. And with that, I will actually be able to see that session booking and agree to that and be online then. Yes, it does move slightly away from the psychic reader on Crystal Heart Psychic that's available now. However, we also have that option. So it's, again, for the creator, it's a matter of choice. You can be available online to take calls all the time, or you can actually, just be available after your shows. So after tonight's show, I think we've had a lot to talk about. And again, I thank you for those joining me and listening tonight. And if you've just discovered Crystal Heart, please have a look around. We have an amazing shop. In the shop, you can actually create your own tarot decks or your own decks. So I love this, because what you can actually do is when you say create my deck, it will produce 3 cards. And you can actually type in what you want from that deck. So there's an angel deck. There is also, so if you go into the create my deck, you can see the different decks you can create, which is tarot. You can actually create the full tarot deck, angel deck, affirmation deck. The crystal healing deck is absolutely amazing. It's to die for. Beautiful crystals, aura reading deck, the Reiki and chakra deck. Now, how that works is we don't print it off and ship it for you. We send it by email in a download link, and then you can download those cards yourself. Also in the shop, you'll see that there is an aura camera, and there's a birth chart and compatibility chart. But on top of that, we also have the mind meditations, and we will have the Academy courses there as well. And you can also see the shop on Crystal Heart Psychics as well. So again, yes, I'm not going to hide this. We have the tarot reading, which is a free tarot card pull and an angel oracle. But we also have chat guidance, which is quite fun. We do limit it to 1 question. After 1 question, it will warn you. It does say we charge you. But again, it's sort of, we have a crystal chatbot, which is wonderful. And we also have a life coach, and we have an astrological one as well. And again, if you go on to Discover, you will actually see there's an astrological chatbot there as well. So, some people may not like AI. I have used AI extensively to create my platform. However, I've used AI to create a platform to which assists with human connection. So I'm very pleased with the way it works. Again, I'm not on the Google Play Store yet or Apple Store. However, if you do look it up on your phone through Google, you can see that it is a PWA app, which means that you can download it to your phone. So also, again, we have workshops. So if you're a host, you can actually host a workshop. That can be a meditation workshop with something from mind, or it can actually be for a tutorial. And again, this is where Crystal Heart Radio was, and how it was developed, and how I developed it was I wanted to not have this whole fragmented approach. If you think about it, I think I cancelled about 5 subscriptions because, private reading in Zoom, if I wanted to host a workshop, I may have to look at Eventbrite, and those are great tools, and I'm not saying anything against them. However, I've made sure that Crystal Heart actually has that all in one platform. So, and also when it comes to the ecosystem, we have Crystal Hearts, or crystal-heart.com, or crystalhearts.co.uk. And that's the introduction to the ecosystem, where it lists every single app. And, it's not developed yet, but we will certainly be developing a single sign-on. So life will be much easier to move around the Crystal Heart system. But what I will say to you is I will be back Thursday. We'll continue looking at the energy of this week and where the first quarter moon in Scorpio is taking us. But until then, I want you to just take some time out, do some breathing, give yourself permission to be brave, allow for that healing to come in. Trust your intuition and keep your feet on the ground. And remember, you don't have to become someone else to find your light. Seek the light within yourself and you will become you. I'm sending lots of love and light to all those who have listened and tonight. And I look forward to seeing you on Thursday. I will put the event on Facebook. I will be doing it at 9:30 on Thursday. So I look forward to you tuning in then. And also it would be lovely for someone to understand how the app works and actually call in and see how we go. You take care now. I'm going to play some lovely music back out. Thank you for listening. See you soon.